So I see it in your messages sometimes, and I will get letters about this sometimes, and I'll see it in people's Instagram posts, but there's so often a layer of judgment that we have about ourselves. And when we are trying to create something in our life and we're not doing it, we rush to label ourselves as lazy or unmotivated or bored, and then we feel worse about ourselves, and this whole miserable cycle continues and continues and continues. Today, I want to tell you why you are not lazy, you are not bored, and you are not unmotivated, and explain what is actually getting in your way. So if this resonates with you, then you'll want to be sure to keep watching. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome aboard. My name is Jen. I am a life coach and law of attraction teacher, and this is my YouTube channel where I share 2 new videos with you guys every week, all about the art of creating your best life ever through mindset and manifestation, the 2 tools that I believe you need to use together in order to create what you really want in life. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. So our inner mean girl, or our inner mean guy, depending on who's watching this, is one of the loudest voices in our head. And when we are trying to create something in our life and we're finding it difficult to do that, that is when that mean inner voice can get really loud. And it'll start to tell us all kinds of terrible things about ourselves. And the thing is, we really buy into that and we really believe what this voice is telling us. So what happens then is when we're not doing what we want to do in life, then we tell ourselves that we're too lazy, or that we're boring or bored, or that we're unmotivated. And that just makes us feel worse about the whole situation, right? Raise your hand if you recognize this scenario, or drop me a hell yeah in the comments below, because I think pretty much all of us have been there at one point in time. But surprise, surprise, it isn't true. For one thing, you guys, anytime your voice in your head, especially your mean girl voice or your mean guy voice, is telling you something about yourself, you do not have to believe it, okay? Your brain is simply having a thought about you, but that doesn't mean that thought is true. So when you're in this mode of having negative thoughts about yourself specifically, when you're engaging in negative self-talk with yourself, and sometimes it's really hard to get a handle on this, I get it, but you have to understand that whatever thoughts are happening in your brain right now, they are not true. They are not empirically true. They will probably never be true. So please don't take them on as if just because you're having this thought means it's true, because I'm here to tell you that that is not the case, okay? This is just a bad habit thought that your brain is having right now, and we're gonna walk through what's actually going on, because there is a common root at the bottom of each one of these things, and the more that you illuminate that and the more that you understand what's really going on, the more compassion you're going to have for yourself, and the less you'll be in this mode of beating yourself up over not making progress and not doing the thing and not taking action. And it's really hard to take action and move yourself forward when you have this feel of shame around everything happening in your life. So that's really the ultimate effect of all these negative words and negative statements that we tell ourselves. We end up feeling shame about what we haven't done. So shame is the lowest vibe emotion on the human emotional scale. So we do not want you guys to go into a shame spiral, because it's, like I said, it's really hard to get out of it. It is a spiral. It will suck you more and more down, and especially if you don't stop what the thoughts are happening in your brain. So today I just want to walk you through these specific things and to tell you why the things you're feeling and the things that you are saying about yourself, or that your inner mean girl is saying about yourself, aren't true, okay? Because it's really important to understand this so that you can disengage with this self-judgment and this negative self-talk. So let's talk about the first one. So what's the first thing that pops into your head when you forgot to go to the gym, or you didn't do something that you really wanted to do, that you're not keeping up with the goals that you set for yourself? Like, we can talk about motivation in another episode, but right now I want to talk about what happens when you miss the thing that you really wanted to do. Most of us jump right to the place of calling ourselves lazy. It's like, oh, If you weren't so lazy, you would go to the gym. If you weren't so lazy, you would make the phone call. If you weren't so lazy, you would start the project. If you weren't so lazy, you would finish the project, right? This is the kind of thing that we tell ourselves all the time. And judging ourselves and calling ourselves lazy is really just not that helpful, and it's also not true, okay? So what's really happening when you're lazy and you're not taking action on something? It's really that there is some sort of underlying fear happening underneath, right? If the path forward seemed easy, if you knew the steps, if you could figure it out, if you could see a little bit farther ahead, then you would probably feel a little bit better and feel more inclined to do the work, right? And that includes going to the gym, right? Sometimes going to the gym can be a scary thing to do. Sometimes doing anything new can be a scary thing to do. Sometimes running a new pathway in the park can be a scary thing to do. If you've never done something before, some part of your brain is going to think this thing is scary. But that's not what you are telling yourself. You are not acknowledging the fear. All you are doing is telling yourself that you are lazy, that there's something wrong with you. But that is never going to help you get past what's really happening, right? So if you're calling yourself lazy, if this is part of the negative self-talk that you experience all the time, I want you to start to get clear about what's really getting in your way. Like, what is the real fear thought that's happening in your brain? And how can you start to get on the other side of it? And the funny thing about fear is that most of the time when we just acknowledge it and when we see fear for what it really is, instead of listening to the cloud of nonsense noise on top of it, which in this case is us telling ourselves that we're lazy. When you recognize the fear and that you're like, oh yeah, I'm just afraid to try going to the gym for the first time, or I'm afraid to sign up for this membership, or I'm afraid to make this phone call, then you can start to get a handle on it, right? Because the funny thing about fear is that the less you investigate it, the worse it is. The more that you can get concrete about what's actually happening in your brain, the less scary things are. So fear actually kind of works on a big, unexamined scale. But if you can become clear, and if you can question yourself, and if you can notice what's actually happening, then it's a lot easier to diffuse, right? So you can always take action in the face of fear, but it's hard to take action in the face of fear when you're calling fear laziness, right? Because you are kind of trying to target the wrong thing. You're telling yourself that there's something inherently wrong with you, as opposed to being like, hey, I'm afraid to do this thing for the first time, and letting yourself walk you through doing it, right? Because you can still take action even when you're afraid, and being afraid doesn't mean you can't do something. So when you actually realize what the real problem is, that will help you get on the other side of it. So remember that you guys are not lazy. You're probably just afraid of something. So figure out what that is. The second thing that you might be telling yourself right now is that you are bored or boring. So this is something that we love to tell ourselves when we're wasting time, watching Netflix, or endlessly scrolling through the gram, or, you know, constantly refreshing Facebook. It's like, you tell yourself this lie: I'm only doing this because I'm bored. If I wasn't so bored, I wouldn't be on Twitter. If I wasn't so bored, I wouldn't be on Instagram. If I wasn't so bored, I wouldn't be doing this. But that is completely and utterly untrue, you guys. This is a lie that we like to tell ourselves because we don't want to admit what we're actually doing. What we're actually doing is avoiding something. We are filling up our time with something small and quote unquote trivial, so that we don't have to pay attention to what's actually happening for us, okay? So I would call this behavior buffering behavior. This is the kind of thing that we do when we're kind of like self-medicating, but instead of, you know, drinking or something, we are doing something with our time. So I want you to ask yourself, when you find yourself doing this, and when you're using this excuse of you're just bored or you're so boring, and like watching endless hours of TV or scrolling the internet for hours and hours, like what are you really hiding from, okay? So we can hide from all kinds of things in our life through our actions. But at the end of the day, again, it's your fear that's coming up. You are fearing facing your real emotions. You're fearing facing a certain situation. So you're letting yourself spend your time and energy doing these things that aren't actually important to you. So if this is you, if you are spending lots of time online and you feel like it's out of control in a way, but you're also judging it and, you know, saying that you're only doing it because you're bored, I would challenge you to think about what you are actually avoiding. I would challenge you to think about what your fears are. Like, if you stopped doing this, if you stopped the scrolling, if you stopped the Netflixing, what would you have to do instead? And like, that thing that you're trying to avoid is probably something that you actually really need to work on. Okay? At the end of your lifespan, no one is ever going to look back and be like, wow, I am so glad I spent all those hours on the computer. So try to remember like what is really important in your life. Try to remember what your goals are. And also remember the fact that you only have limited time and energy in every single day. And it is up to you to make sure you are spending that time and energy on the things that are actually important to you. If you want to claim that you are bored, you are really just, again, buffering. You are steering yourself away from something for some reason. And I'm willing to bet that it's a fear reason again. So get honest with yourself and figure out why you're doing the thing. There is always a reward that we get out of our behavior. So it's up to you to figure out what that is. So the final one I want to talk about today is that you are unmotivated, that you are falling into the procrastination trap, that you are, maybe procrastinating. That's one of my personal favorites. You are doing all the other things except the thing you want to do. And then you're feeling incredible guilt around it and telling yourself that you are unmotivated, again, lazy, something like that. I want to tell you guys, again, like I just touched on this, but our behavior is always motivated by only one of two things. We are either trying to avoid pain or we are moving towards pleasure. Okay, so if you are procrastinating, if you're putting something off, if you keep telling yourself that you're going to do it tomorrow, that you're going to do it tomorrow, going to do it tomorrow, please know that part of you is getting something out of this. So again, I think a lot of us think, well, I should know better than saying I'm going to do it tomorrow. Like, I should go to the gym today. I should stop watching Netflix. I should, do these things. I should just have that motivation naturally. But I just want to remind you that part of your brain really loves it when you stay at home and scroll through Facebook endlessly or watch, hours and hours of Netflix. Part of you is really, really into that. So sometimes I think we forget to admit that to ourselves. It's like we feel surprised by our behavior. It's like we know what we should be doing, but we're doing this other thing, and then we feel judgment about it, and we feel kind of surprised that we would even engage in that behavior. But I just want to remind you that that behavior on some level is fun, right? All of those things that you are choosing to do instead of the hard thing are fun, are enjoyable, are pleasurable. But it's also important to remember that we can't have that all the time. Anything that we do too much will start to strangle us. It will become a burden, right? And the thing is, humans need stability. We need comfort. We need to have a safe place to retreat to, but we also need to have novelty. We need to keep growing. We need to keep expanding. And the thing that comes with all of those things is obviously change. We need to change things. We need to go do new things. And behind that, again, is our old friend fear. Fear is really what helps to keep us small, because it really just wants you to stay at home and be boring. But you have to remember, like I just said, being boring, staying at home, doing the same thing over and over, cocooning yourself, hibernating for the winter, doing the Netflix thing for too long, it's going to choke you. It is eventually going to cause you just as much pain, if not more pain, than just doing the new thing, okay? So try to remember that as well. These things that we tell ourselves are good for us, that are maybe even we're trying to tell ourselves that they're self-care. Yeah, to a certain degree, they can be self-care, until they aren't anymore. And only you will know when that bridge is crossed, right? So if you're feeling unmotivated, just remember that there are always two motivations. And sometimes you have to remember that so you can forgive yourself, because you are getting something out of every single one of your choices. But you have control and you can start to choose something else. And I know it's difficult sometimes when you're doing something like working out, because it takes a little while for us to get the satisfaction of seeing results. So sometimes you really just have to create discipline and do it anyways, and just go through the discomfort and just realize that that's going to be the way it is for a while. Because of course your brain wants comfort and it wants Netflix, but you want other things in life, and it is ultimately up to you to double down on the things that you really want. Because if you don't do that, then you're not going to get them. They're not guaranteed to come to you unless you put in the work. So I hope that that helps you get on the other side of it. If you're procrastinating, which I tend to do sometimes, come back, watch this video again, and remember this. So what did you guys think? Which one was your personal favorite? Like, I know that I am definitely a procrastinator, so I'm gonna come back and watch the procrastination part of this video probably more than once. Sometimes even I need a pep talk. But I would love to hear what you guys think, so drop me a comment and let me know below. I'd really love to hear your opinions about this. Thank you guys so much for watching until the end. If you wanna know more about me, then I totally welcome you to come over to my site. At The Aligned Life, I have a free Magical AF audio training for you guys to download right now, and it is pretty amazing. It's a good little pep talk. It's kind of like a private podcast that you can listen to on the go, so come on over and get yours. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you want to watch more from me, then you can watch the latest upload right here, and if you want to subscribe, you can hit the subscribe button here. Thank you guys again for being here. I'll be back soon in the next video, so until then, I'm wishing you an amazing week. And as always, just remember, get ready for the miracle. See you guys.